On today's show, Darrell and I are talking about what players get wrong in their pre-pitch routine. Welcome back to Strategic Baseball Podcast. We are doing a series on the pre-pitch routine. On today's show, we're going to talk about what players are getting wrong in their pre-pitch routine. Geoff and Darrell here, and we are a part of a group of baseball instructors and coaches that you probably have never heard of before. We don't rely on cookie cutter evaluation to assess and judge baseball players. We don't judge players on physical talent alone. In fact, we do the exact opposite. We use strategic assessment and individualized training that we know can help any player get better. Because we are fighting against too many players and parents giving up on baseball too soon, we have to evaluate players differently. We have to do things more strategically. We don't have the ability to pick our players from a huge pool of talented players. Every day, we have to take players where they currently are and build on the skills they currently have. So, we focus more on building a strategic advantage mindset more than the physical talent early on. So how do we do that? How do we convince players to believe in themselves? If you ask some high school coaches, college recruiters, or pro scouts, they'll tell you that it's a waste of time. Some players just don't have it. Yet, it's happening every single day. It's happening through strategic assessment and hyper-individualized training that we call Strategic Advantage Baseball. This is Strategic Baseball Podcast, and these are our stories. All right, Darrell, I'm going to let you kick this off. Today we're talking about what players get wrong in their pre-pitch routine.
Yeah, man. I think it's something that, as last week we kind of drove in why it's important to have a pre-pitch routine, and really that, I almost hate calling it a routine because then we just think it's like something we learn and then it's kind of autopilot or becomes a habit. And really there's a lot more to it, and especially for baseball players, that a lot of the thinking that has to happen prior to, the action of the pitch, that strategic type thinking has to happen in that pre-pitch routine. And so again, this week or this show, man, I really wanted to drive in that, hey, there's three core things that we see that players get wrong with this. And I think some of it is us as coaches, we don't communicate very well, or kind of in the heat of the moment, we kind of throw these anecdotes out at these guys. And the reality of it is, whether it's a player that's struggling or whether it's a player that's really dealing, man, what we see the difference in the reality of what's happening matters. And so the first one I want to talk about is we got to, as coaches, and we got to quit telling players to stop thinking and quit thinking, because I know after hundreds of conversations with elite level high school, college, and pro pitchers, man, they really don't know what we mean when we say that. A lot of times it's us trying to convince them to quit overthinking stuff, quit overanalyzing it, that kind of paralysis by analysis mindset. And when we do that, it might be true. It might be what they need to quit doing. But if we don't explain to them literally, like, okay, if you're thinking this at this time, then we're wrong. And you and I always explain it to our guys that if it's preseason and you're thinking about what you should have done in the off season, it's too late. If you're in season and you're thinking about what you should have done in the preseason to get ready, it's too late. That we got to get focused on that season, that time, that moment. So, as we're recording this, we're getting ready to move from off season into preseason here in Oklahoma. And we're seeing that conversation now, that if I needed to get bigger, faster, stronger, the work that they've done these last 2 or 3 months is getting ready to start bearing fruit in the preseason program. When we really start practicing baseball, when we really get focused on the individual skills, and then, for pitchers, really getting to feel their pitches back and mastering that pitch, and, that pitch that they're going to use in real games. And so the thinking piece of it then is really about now, okay, what do I need to do in my bullpens to get a feel for my pitch, master my pitch? See, that's a real thinking. That's something that needs to happen. Inside that pre-pitch routine, I need to understand mentally, strategically, and physically what all comes together that lets me decide this is the absolute best pitch to throw right now. And that is baseball. That pitch-to-pitch decision literally is pitching. And so we need these guys to be thinking. We just need them not to be thinking about the wrong things and be focused on the right things. And then the second thing is, man, you're not born with this. This is not a genetic thing. This pre-pitch routine, the way you think and the way you create a strategy versus a hitter or a pitcher or an opponent is something that is learned. That is something that we can teach these guys, and you and I do it every day here. There's got to be a piece of the game that understands, as we talked about in the last show, when there's a mindset for practice about that, it's about me mastering my skills and me really getting ready for pregame prep, we call it. That piece is more the mental side of it. Now, is there a strategic aspect of why we want to develop pitches the way we develop them? Absolutely. Is there a physical piece of it? Yeah, baseball is a physical, a mental, and a strategic game. You got to be able to do all three if you really want to be good at it. And it's not something that you're born with. You might be born with some genetic advantages, but the reality of it is, man, that's why I love baseball so much, man. You see undersized, guys don't have the great measurables, but just go out there and play the game and play the game at the high level. And you can't necessarily, from just a pure measurables perspective, grade them out and say, why is this kid having so much success? But the reality of it is, man, they're a baseball player. They get the pre-pitch routine. They get that there's a lot of practice that manifests itself on game day. But once the game starts, it's about the opponent. And that is a mindset shift that you have to make. And if you're out there in the middle of a game thinking about stuff that you should have done in practice, it's too late. And I think that's where we see a lot of these guys that when it's not going good, they want to kind of blame that, hey, you either got it or you don't have it, or you're born with it or you're not born with it. And that's just not real. When it comes to baseball and your knowledge and what kind of student of the game you want to be, you're not born with that. You learn that. You develop that by how you pay attention and the coaches that you surround yourself with, the information that you learn from. And as coaches, it's the information that we give them. And then the third thing I want to really kind of drive home in kind of what I think we get wrong as players about the pre-pitch routine is that your brain is not going to lie to your body. We train the brain to tell our body what to do. So if we don't understand that pre-pitch thought and the impact of what we think and how we think, and I'm not talking about positive self-talk, man. I'm talking about the reality of the strategic thinking of when the game starts, that what I'm trying to do to this hitter or what as a hitter I'm trying to do to this pitcher. If that's not an active part of it, then you're not going to convince your brain in the middle of a game under extreme pressure to try doing something for the first time and think it's going to be successful. And I think that's the piece where we really drive home that, yeah, practice does manifest itself on game day, but that's more about your individual skills. The strategic side of it is kind of what opens up the brain to let the body do what it does. If not, as soon as we start competing against kids that are good or better than us, or guys that are preparing for us, or coaches that really know how to game plan and get their players ready for a pitcher or a hitter, vice versa, when you do that, you're going to see that the better players with the better plan and that are strategic thinkers are the ones that's more often than not is going to be the most successful players. And so I think that really is kind of the blend of when we see all three aspects of baseball come together. Most of the time, man, it manifests itself inside that pre-pitch routine. And so that's a critical piece of it, man. We want to think the right way. You're not born with it. And at the end of the day, man, we train our brain to kind of tell our bodies what to do. So if our brain trusts and believes in what we're doing, then we got a lot better opportunity to perform well on game day. If not, we're not going to magically cross that white line on game day and think that, something that I've never really believed or trusted or had confidence in is going to magically happen on game day. That's just rarely going to happen. And so I think that's the mindset shift and kind of what we get wrong inside that pre-pitch routine from the pitching perspective, man. What do you think?
Yeah, we're talking about pre-pitch routine, and you and I like to explain the pre-pitch routine, and that is physical, mental, and strategic. So within that, on game day, within that, we have to turn our attention to our opponent. And we have to have the proper thinking. So when we talk about what we're doing wrong in our pre-pitch routine, part of that's going to be that proper thinking. We hear all the time of coaches and players talking about trying to clear their mind, trying not to overthink. And we try to tell guys, look, we've got to be able to think. You have to think through what it is you're getting ready to do. You have to think through what it is that you think is going to be the best pitch for you to sit in this count in this situation. You have to think through what that pitcher just did and what adjustment you need to make against him. Now we're getting into the right type of thinking. What did he do? Is there anything that you saw in real time that's going to hint to you what might be the next best pitch that he's going to throw, and what is the best pitch for you to look for in this situation account? Now I can think through the situation account. I can think through what pitch he wants to throw, and then what the PVML of that pitch that I want. So now we're having the right type of thinking. And if I'm sitting here thinking about my hands, or I don't trust my ability to execute in situation account, then I've got the wrong thinking going on already. If I'm thinking about how I don't like the 0-2 count, I've got the wrong type of thinking already. So the pre-pitch routine that we do is a process that allows you to organize your thoughts and actions so that you can play the pitch one at a time. Instead of thinking, really, man, when you get up there, instead of thinking, hey, man, I really cannot get to 2-strike count because this guy had a great out pitch. Now I'm losing my focus and my discipline for the rest of my at bat because I'm worrying about the type of pitch that he's going to get me out with instead of what I need to think about in this very moment. And again, like Darrell said, guys, we're not born with this. There are some guys out there that have great instincts of the game, but they learned somehow how to watch a game and find things that would give them an advantage over the pitcher. But it was still learned. And most kids, most players have got to be taught how to watch a game. And what can help them get an advantage over that pitcher? You hear it all the time. You hear coaches tell players they need to pay attention. And the players over there are confused because he lacked the clarity and understanding of how to pay attention. We've got to understand how to watch a game and how to use that information to give us an advantage so that we can be confident in the decision that we're making as to what is the best pitch for me to look for in this situation and this count. And then lastly, like Darrell mentioned, the brain's not going to lie to your body. We train the brain to tell the body what to do. So we have to understand the impact of our pre-pitch thoughts, what we think and how we think. So in talking about strategic thinking when the game starts as to what I'm trying to do against the pitcher, this has to be an active thought.
The big takeaway from this one is really that we got to personalize the pre-pitch routine, that the way we think and the things that we do is critical in baseball, that we can't eliminate the thinking piece of baseball, and we're not going to eliminate it within the pre-pitch routine in the game. So as players and as pitchers, we really do need to understand that this pre-pitch routine, the reality of what happens inside of it truly is 90% of baseball, and it's going to have a huge impact on each player's individual success.
Yeah, and my takeaway is going to be that the pre-pitch routine can be done wrong, and a lot of times it's where a lot of guys are struggling at. It's really the strategic thinking that they're doing or they're not doing. So this pre-pitch routine, like Darrell just mentioned, is 90% of baseball. So thank you all for catching this show. And again, like always, if you guys are finding any value in these episodes, please leave us an objective review and then head over to strategic-baseball.com and join our circle. And we got some stuff that we're working on. We're going to be coming out with hopefully pretty soon. So, check that out, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.